Tonight on GamePoints episode 377, the Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer is here and of course set the internet on fire. Capcom is promising many more Resident Evil remake in the future, and the Embracer Group is still hemorrhaging talent. All that and more in just a moment, but first I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching us live here at Twitch TV or later at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be they Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, whatever, feel free to comment, like, question down below. I want to know what you guys are thinking about the topics we're talking about. Just try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. All right, first up, let's just go ahead and pop this one right out the gate because it is by far the biggest news that we have. Rockstar Games dropping the trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6. Admittedly a day early because someone was able to get a hold of it and leak it. And rather than doing the typical video game spin, it's like we don't acknowledge that exists until the game comes out, they went, hey, this leaked, it sucked. You can even tell a little bit of snark from this tweet here. And they just dropped it a little bit early for everyone else, which is the smart thing to do. You can't unring the bell. You can't DMCA your way out of a leak. It just doesn't work. You just get more attention to it, so embrace it. Yes, it sucks when it happens for your marketing team. Roll with it. You just have to. Because the more you try to hide it, the more curious people are going to get about it, especially when it's GTA. Come on. So good on Rockstar for being smart with this one. So, the trailer, which I'm actually not going to play here because it's a big company and big companies love to claim things, even if it's transformative under fair use. But the trailer does feature mainly Luca, which is one of the pair of protagonists in the upcoming GTA 6. She seems to be in a relationship a la Bonnie and Clyde style with, I think, someone else named Jason. I'm like blanking on his name now all of a sudden. What happens when we get in front of a camera? And it was kind of a little weird because I remember the rumors a year ago or so about them being brother and sister. But there's one scene of a trailer that's definitely not the sibling relationship. However, it is in Florida. So, who knows? It is going to be a modern day setting with many references to real life. You see a whole bunch of TikTok flashing up on their ads for mood suppressants. And just general what you would expect in a big city these days. So it's not going to go back to the 80s. It's not going to be in the 90s. It is a modern day game. What was funny is that during that trailer, it made a bunch of references to real life events, like the gator going to the convenience store, the guy at the gas pump, the Florida Joker character. So it seems like Grand Theft Auto is still keeping that odd mockery of American society at the forefront. And it doesn't seem like it's necessarily being corrupted for modern audiences. We all know what that means, right? But we'll see. I wasn't like afraid of that to begin with, but I do know there was a lot of concern about the wokening of Grand Theft Auto. You have a bunch of unfounded rumors around this game getting tossed around. It's all really designed just to piss people off and get clicks. At the end of the day, we have no idea. It looks good to me. I don't see anything wrong with that at the moment. I'm sure that if we were to do a deep dive into every single thing that this trailer showed, that we could find something to bitch about. But I'm not looking to do that. It's one of those grains of sand make a heap kind of thing, where it's like, okay, one thing's off, who cares? Two or three things off, maybe. If most of it was off, yeah, okay, then we can get our pitchforks out. But this trailer seems to have done a good job of keeping that Grand Theft Auto spirit intact. So, well done, Rockstar. It seems like you navigated the culture war with a game that is going to be at the forefront of it, regardless if you want it to be or not. Because you know there's already a myriad of articles on both sides of this topic deriding the trailer for something. Any imagined or perceived slights. But for the most part, the video game community has embraced it with open arms. People are very excited for this, even if it does launch in 2025. So it is going to miss next year. And I am sure many a publishing studio are saying thank Christ, because when this comes out, it's going to suck all the attention out from everything around it. We're going to meet for one moment. the joys of doing a live show. And I keep that in there, whatever. So yeah, it looks good. Definitely down for it. Tom Petty was in the soundtrack, suggesting rather that it's going to be another banger of a licensed selection of music. Grand Theft Auto has always had amazing music to it. I'm very curious to see who they pick for this one right here. I also understand that Tom Petty was excited to have his music played in the Grand Theft Auto 4 it was as well, so there is some history there. Lord Crush in chat saying, already going to say that GTA 6 is Game of the Year 2025, probably. Probably. I can't think of anything else on the horizon that might, like, come up to it. So if you think about it, if we were just talking about pure hype, Grand Theft Auto 6 is on the levels of, like, Half-Life 3. Or Starfield. Yes, I know Starfield came out, but think about the hype machine behind Starfield, or Cyberpunk even. It's those levels of hype. But Rockstar has been able to, whereas Cyberpunk and Starfield both came out, and their launch dates aren't that great. Cyberpunk, admittedly, much more improved. Rockstar hasn't led us astray yet. Look at the magnificent Red Dead Redemption 2, the just as exquisite Grand Theft Auto 5. They have a pretty good track record of these things, so they still have the benefit of a doubt that places like Bethesda or CD Projekt Red might not have yet. That jadedness hasn't really kicked in, so you can still have the hope. But however, I will say, as always, wait and see. What we saw was a finely crafted trailer, excellently edited, looked very slick. Who knows how much of that's actual gameplay and how much of that is just a bullshit shot. Wait until the game's out. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be bad. I'm not even saying it's going to be anything less than Game of the Year 2025. What I am saying, however, is a healthy dose of skepticism, especially in this industry, is more than warranted and will save yourself more than a bit of heartbreak as time goes on. So, let's keep that in mind. All that said, it does look amazing. My one regret, I'll say, is that since Ray Liotta died last year, it's very unlikely we will see the return of an aged and wizened Tommy Vercetti. I would have loved to have seen him, because this is Vice City. This is his stomping grounds. Vice City, by the way, still my favorite Grand Theft Auto so far, but I'm a sucker for the 80s. What can I say? I just loved that color palette throughout the entire game. I do wish they would go back to that. As far as everything else about the trailer is concerned, well, I'm sure there are experts taking bits and bits of it and tearing it apart. I've already seen a couple videos showing the return of certain vehicles where they like freeze frame on like 1/10 of 1 second. They're like, okay, see this car here? This is the same car that was in Grand Theft Auto 3, and that's too much. Looks solid though. Also, excuse me. If Luca and Jason actually are in a relationship, I would love to see that be a core tenet to Grand Theft Auto 6. And I don't want one betraying the other. I know that betrayal is a huge, huge component of Grand Theft Auto games. I don't want that for this to be the case. I want them to actually have a happy story at the end of this, or go out in a blaze of glory together. As long as the relationship is actually like committed, right? It's so rare to see two people in video games these days actually just madly in love with each other and committed to one another. I'm sure you'll be able to go to like strip clubs and all that stuff, but honestly, I want the story to play out where they stay together by the end. I don't want to see their relationship falling apart. It can go through horrendous strain, but what I want is for them to rely on each other to get through that strain rather than turning to outside influences. And I want the game to end up with them, like I said, together. I think that would be a more powerful statement than anything else that could happen in that case. And this isn't me being like the old, like, tradcon Western civilization is best kind of thing. It's just so rare to see now. It really is. And I think that would be very... It shouldn't be to say it would be a twist to have that happen, but it would be. And I hope Rockstar kind of cements their relationship with the entire game. That would be nice to be able to have two people that you could potentially even play through the entire game co-op with. I'm not saying that they're going to, but I can see that being a thing. So we'll see. The news for Grand Theft Auto 6 now will go away for a couple months, and Rockstar will drip feed us this for the next year and a half. This feels like a March to April game for release of 2025. Also, I don't think they're going to delay it anymore at this point. They did give a nebulous 2025. It just said coming 2025. I think it might have even said summer 2025. Or am I getting that confused with something else? I think it just said 2025. But I'm almost positive they'll hit that. I don't think they would have shown you even this much of it if they weren't prepared to nail that release date. My gut even tells me the game is all but finished at this point, and they're just polishing it. And given Rockstar's notorious polishing that they tend to give their games, once again, look at some of the insane detail to Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah, I think they could probably actually release it today in a very playable state. Let's go back to chat here. I almost imagine that's a criminal-style relationship a la Bonnie and Clyde. Absolutely. That's what I thought when I first saw them too, is that this is Bonnie and Clyde. And there's something very powerful about that. And I hope Rockstar doesn't fuck it up by having them like betray one another or get into a fight, or you have to pick one to live or anything like that. Once again, you can have conflict, you can have drama, you can have disagreements, you can have outright fights. But I don't want them to lose that relationship. I think that speaks more than any weird like plot twist of like, oh, turns out he's trying to kill her kind of bullshit could possibly ever be. Also, something else I think would be awesome too is that if they do want to give them a bad ending, have them give them a bad ending together. Give them like the Thelma and Louise driving off a cliff, or like how Bonnie and Clyde died. I'm envisioning specifically the end to, what was it, The Devil's Rejects or House of Thousand Corpses, whatever the one that had Freebird playing at the end when they go driving off to the gun line. That's kind of how I can. That is the kind of ending I would like for them if they're going to end it on a bad note. They typically don't end these games on bad notes before, Grand Theft Auto 4 being a little bit of an exception to that. Anyways, Grand Theft Auto 6's trailer is out. It is busting the internet all over the place. Multiple million views in any social media platform that you can see. You can go take a look at it right now if you want to. Like, I'm not going to play it here because, well, despite it being fair use, you know that some lawyer somewhere gets in the trigger finger, and I'd just rather not deal with the hassle. Let me know what you would like to see in Grand Theft Auto 6. Let me know if you're looking forward to it or not. I imagine all of you are. Let's take a look here. They already went that route Betrayal in 5. Imagine a last stand or a level's death, or for a twist they land it rich and make it out. Yeah, the Betrayal route happens in 5. You could definitely betray everyone, or you can have all three of them be happy. That's something that they could do. They could actually do both routes, where they have the Betrayal route or the we both are able to get out rich route. I can see them having that in there. But I want an ending where at least they're together and happy. Or together and go out in a blaze of glory. But I still want them together. It's just, like I said, it's just so... I'm loath to use the word wholesome with a Grand Theft Auto game, but I think those watching actually know what I mean when I'm talking about. There's something romantic about it, for lack of a word. And that is something that we're just lacking in general these days. Romance. I'm not talking like the going out on date night with a wife kind of thing, but this idea of romantic lore. It's okay to get a little nostalgic about that sometimes. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments down below. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next story here. This is via IGN. The link to this and all the stories we cover, by the way, will be provided down below on the description. Capcom confirms more Resident Evil remakes are coming. Excellent. Awesome. I love these Resident Evil remakes. I'm down for them. Go into the article itself. At a PlayStation Partner Awards event in Japan, attended and translated by IGN Japan, Resident Evil 4 remake director Yoshihiro Anpo, forgive me if I mispronounced that, said the company will announce its next Resident Evil 4 remake in due course. Yes, Anpo replied when asked if Capcom wants to keep Resident Evil remakes. We've released 3 remakes so far, and they've all been received very well. Since it allows the modernists to play these games, it's something I'm happy to continue to do as long as someone loves these older games, and we want to continue doing more. What game we'll remake in the future is something that we would very much like to announce in the future, so please look forward to it. Please be excited announcement, right? I am totally fine with this, and they keep making new Resident Evils as well. I mean, we're still relatively fresh off the heels of Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil 9, I believe, is already in the rumor mill, talking about coming out relatively soon. Of course, what Resident Evil games would they remake next? My money would say Code Veronica. Original launched as a Dreamcast exclusive, has since been ported over to like PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but it's pretty dated at this point, and it could definitely use a fresh coat of paint. Also, if the 4chan rumor mill is to be believed, that remake should be close to nigh, but then again, consider the source. I typically don't. But there is a bunch of, at the very least, wish casting for Code Veronica to come into being. And I do think that would actually be the case. Code Veronica, if you take a look at the entire lore of Resident Evil, super important and yet underutilized in many of the other games. So I'd like to see them give that the treatment again. Also, you could see Resident Evil 0 getting redone, although I do think that game probably is now non-canon. I'm not 100% on that. Other things to consider, though, too, and I don't necessarily want to see these, is Resident Evil 5 and 6. Now, I didn't think those were very good games. I thought they kind of sucked, especially 6 with its weird woman blowing a giraffe logo, half a giraffe logo. Trust me, when you see it, you're not going to be able to unsee it. But they were very, very successful for Capcom. Even if I personally didn't care too much for them. I think at the time they were their biggest selling entries into the franchise until 7 actually came out. So I do expect those to also be on the remake planning as well. However, let us not forget there are 2 other Capcom games, that franchises that would be ripe, dare I say, in demand for a remake. One is the obvious one when we talk about Resident Evil. You can't talk about Resident Evil remakes without someone going, well, what about Dino Crisis? That first Dino Crisis was amazing. The second and third one, not so much, but let's not talk about them at the moment. Focus on that first one. With today's modern technology and the reemergence of horror gaming as a genre in video games, man, that would... I think you can actually get something real goddamn good out of that. You can go a little bit more on the action-y side with it because, well, it is Dino Crisis. You are shooting T-Rexes. But some of those internal buildings moments were very, very intense. I remember being decently scared playing that game more than a few times. Helped that it certainly channeled the Resident Evil vibes. But there's another game, another franchise that Capcom has access to. Onimusha. And I think that is also ripe for a comeback right now. The samurai genre is on a bit of a resurgence. You have Ghost of Tsushima, Neo. My God, the other games that come out whose names I'm forgetting right now, but they were announced about a year ago or so. I apologize for not remembering off the top of my head. But that style of samurai-ish setting is definitely kind of not overused yet, not overplayed. I hate making this comparison, but imagine if Onimusha comes out and it has a slightly more Souls-like mechanic to it. A stamina-based combat system. You don't need to have like bonfires or re-looping into the level over and over again. You know, the folding levels that the Dark Souls games are known for. But maybe something like, I don't know, Neo? But a little more, like cross Neo and Sekiro. And I think you can have an amazing Onimusha game. So, if Capcom is remaking things, I think we should definitely point their eye toward those 2 long-standing franchises as well, because it has been far, far too long since we've heard any of them, from either one of them. And yes, I know that Dino Crisis 3 exists. That game sucked. Let's just not talk about that. In fact, let's not talk about the second one. Of the 3 games in that franchise, only one of them are good, I admit. But that one was a banger. Moving on to the next story here. I bring this up not because I'm a Starfield fan. And I'll clarify my position on that here in a second. Well, let's get to the article. Once again, we're sticking with IGN. Starfield has now had over 12 million players, Phil Spencer said. I bring this up not because I'm necessarily a Starfield fan. In fact, I only played it for like an hour or two and then uninstalled it. I will get back to it eventually. But the fact of the matter is, despite how much hype Starfield had coming out to it, it had the misfortune of launching this year. In a year that is more stacked than any game year in games that I can think of in the past decade. And honestly, while I did enjoy my couple hours of Starfield, it's still kind of a game from 10 years ago. I have too many things to play right now that take just as long. Baldur's Gate, Tears of the Kingdom, shorter games like Alan Wake, the Star Ocean 2 remake is amazing. That's just scratching the surface. Like the Dead Space remake, I think came out this year. I've forgotten more amazing games that came out this year than I have actually beaten. That's how stacked of a year this is. And I know I'm missing more of them. In face of all of that, there isn't a single thing Starfield does that another game doesn't do better. Now, Starfield has a lot of systems thrown into it, sure. But at the end of the day, every one of those systems is done better by someone else. Now, it might not do as many as Starfield does, but it really does kind of stack up against Starfield's favor, unfortunately. And there has been this belief that, Starfield's a dead game. Not as many people are playing it anymore. Bethesda has a failure. We've waited 10 years for Starfield, and this is what we fucking get. And yeah, it is a little disappointing in my opinion. But that doesn't mean people aren't playing it. In fact, if you're still actively playing Fallout 4, and there's many of you that do, you're going to play Starfield and get many a year out of it. The reason why I wanted to bring up this article is to kind of push back against that narrative that somehow Starfield is a failure. Because it's not. Might not be for me, might not be for you, but it did sell well enough. I don't think that it'll hit Elder Scrolls 5 numbers. But a couple years from now, after the expansion comes out and the modding community tears this game apart and rebuilds it, we'll see. And there could be something here in the future. Just don't count it as dead and buried just yet, because it's nowhere near as such. Anyways, enough pontificating to the article itself. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has announced that Starfield has now seen over 12 million players. Speaking during the CCXP event in Brazil, Spencer described Bethesda's space RPG as a tremendous hit, although failed to announce sales figures or the split of players between Game Pass subscribers and owners of the game itself. That, however, is not good, despite everything I said. Because remember one of the mantras on GamePoints. If numbers are great, a company won't shut up about them. If numbers are bad, you'll never hear a peep from them. So whenever Microsoft refuses to give data or information, that can usually, not always, but usually be taken as a bad sign. But that said, 12 million players that's huge. That's huge. Back to the article itself. Phil Spencer said the following. Starfield now had over 12 million players since the launch of Starfield, and it sits on the top 10 most played games from our studios. So thank you everyone for all the support on Starfield and making it a tremendous hit. Starfield launched on PC and Xbox Series S and X in September as a day one Game Pass title, which is where I played it, by the way, and became the biggest launch in Bethesda history. After shooting past 6 million players in 1 week, then saw more than 10 million players in less than 3 weeks after it came out. However, a bit of quick math there does show that number kind of plateaued around 10 million. 3 weeks after it came out, it's been about 2 months now, and they're at 12, so they've added another 2 million on there. Christmas might change things, though. Black Friday did just hit, and in about a month we have Christmas. A lot of people might be getting Xboxes with Starfield in it. We'll see. I think that there is potential here with this game, but I don't think it's nearly what we were hoping it would be. My biggest complaint against it is the amount of procedural generation that's in there. Yes, cool. I have 1,000 worlds I can explore. Why would I want to? There's nothing on there but the same few variations of the same quest over and over and over again from what I've played. From what I've played so far. Once again, to be fair, I haven't beaten it. But I would rather you have given me 20 excellent handcrafted worlds than 200 slapdash procedurally generated ones. And I don't think I'm alone in that statement. Take a look at chat before I move on. Lord Crush says they enjoy Starfield, but it does feel like Fallout 4 upgrade in many ways, so I think the survival aspect was underutilized low. Yeah, it's Fallout 4. It is fair to say that it is just Fallout 4.5 or a mod to Fallout 4. And that engine they use, I think it's Gamebryo, man, is it really, really starting to show its age. Yeah, they've done some cool shit with it for Starfield, I will admit. It is the prettiest of the Bethesda games out there. But goddamn, is it really, really starting to get old? I think it might be time for when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out in 2030. I'm not even joking about that. It could be 2030 before that game sees the light of day. That we get a new engine. Please, Bethesda, you have that Microsoft money now. Let's spend it. Moving on from Bethesda to BioWare, a company that I used to love. It was Dragon Age Day yesterday. And what the hell's Dragon Age Day? Doesn't matter. It's another one of BioWare's made-up holidays that they use to try to get some marketing going around here. The only reason why I'm bringing this up, however, is because they made a "Don't forget about us, please be excited" notice on their blog for Dragon Age Day saying, hey, Dragon Age is still coming. Don't forget about us, which in my opinion rules out any other Dragon Age news at the Game Awards coming up this Thursday. The Game Awards has been home for a few of reveals from BioWare, and I think this is them just kind of getting ahead without saying that they're not going to be there by putting this out. The trailer, which they do have like a little tiny trailer here for down here, one second I'm not going to play. It hints that the game will be going to many a place in Thedas that you've never seen before in a Dragon Age game, namely Rivia, Antiva, Weishaupt, and the Anderfels, and of course Tevinter, which seems to be where the bulk of the game is supposed to be taking place. However, don't get too excited because it's still mostly just concept art with vague voiceovers of characters that we don't recognize saying sinister shit. Once again, we still don't have any gameplay. We don't even really know what it's going to play like, because if the rumor are to be believed, it's been rebooted, twice now at this point? However, they do give a promise of saying that there will be a full reveal come summer of 2024. Which in my opinion means the game probably won't be till 2025. And knowing BioWare's recent spate of just horrendous luck over the past decade, probably the release date of Grand Theft Auto 6 and or within a month away. Once again, I think the reason why this is taking so long is because BioWare knows it must be great. It cannot afford to be simply good. And it is disastrous if the reception is it needs to be great or BioWare doesn't exist anymore. I think EA would have slammed this studio into the ground more than a few times over the past 10 years between Andromeda and Anthem and canceled projects like, what was it, Shadow Realms or something like that. I think the only reason why BioWare is even still operating right now, rather than just being folded into any number of teams that EA has, is because of PR. EA has had a notorious reputation, although they have eased back over the past few years, of buying up shit and closing them down. We all remember Westwood, Maxis, etc. And BioWare, despite its past decade or so of mediocrity, still holds a soft spot in many a gamer. Far more than Blizzard does these days, anyways. And the internet would run red if EA finally shut down BioWare. I see two futures for this studio. One, where Dragon Age Dreadwolf is a hit, and then they suddenly go full-throated into making whatever the next Mass Effect is, and they try to crank it out within a year or so after Dragon Age dropping. Maybe 2 years tops. Because EA is going to suddenly go, all right, BioWare is back. We need a return on investment. It's been a decade since we made money on the studio. Go, 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 go. That doesn't bode well for BioWare. That doesn't bode well for BioWare or Mass Effect. The other feature I envision, Dragon Age comes out like shit. No one cares. It doesn't get bought. It's chock full of games as a service crap that people say brings the game down. In which case, Dragon Age becomes a dead property. EA folds their remaining team members of BioWare into their other teams, lays off half the studio that didn't get offered another job, and the name will still stick around, but it will not actually be anything more than a support studio. However, in that future, Mass Effect gets taken out of the hands of one studio and put in the hands of a conglomeration of studios, all of them putting their best people on it to try to make that game the crown jewel of EA's non-sports catalog. And they take their time with it. Because they can't afford to fuck it up. The first Mass Effect after BioWare gets closed down, yeah, they can't have that PR hit either. So it's either way, one of my favorite franchises of in the modern history of games is going to get fucked. The question is it going to be Dragon Age or Mass Effect in both of these hypotheticals? Either way, bad news for BioWare. Either they get shut down or they get pushed into crunch. It's a rough position to be in, and I said that's just my guess. I could be dead ass wrong. Take a look at chat real quick. You agree? BioWare has to have a hit with Dreadwolf, or the studio is dissolved. Mass Effect is far too off to take into account in any scenario. That's why I think if BioWare gets a hit with Dragon Age, they crunch the staff at BioWare to crank out the next Mass Effect, because they need to have that return of investment be brought closer to the forefront. Whereas if Dragon Age belly flops, and it can be as long as they need to get Mass Effect going, because they're going to have a multitude of other studios working on it, and it'll be kind of slowly worked until it's ready to fully be cranked out. I know I'm glossing over a lot of things here. I know I'm taking a lot of liberties with how games design is. I'm trying to give like a very top-down, 1,000-yard stare, bird's eye view of it. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about that down below. It's weird to think that the last well-received game that BioWare did was Dragon Age Inquisition, and I think that came out like in 2013, which would be about a decade, maybe 2014. And even then, people were kind of grousing about Dragon Age Inquisition. That first open area, once you finally get the game open by, for example, takes way too long to clear. And the pacing of it's all over the place. A lot of unresolved plot lines. A lot of like, we're not quite going to tell you the story yet, but here's a little nugget. And then they took a fucking decade to get here. So so there are numerous problems with Inquisition. However, I did think it was an excellent game. But I also liked Mass Effect 3 as well. Yes, I have my grousings about the ending. Yes, I think they did kind of bone it in there at the end. It was unfortunate to see how it all plays out as it does, and how that's going to come in relation to Mass Effect 4, considering, well, it's a different topic for another time. But I would say the last game that received any kind of acclaim from BioWare was about a decade ago. And that's not a good position for any studio to be in. We have some, well, it's another week, so of course I have more layoffs happening. This is via GamesIndustry.biz. Phoenix Labs lays off 34 staff members. Phoenix Labs this week had a second round of layoffs this year, as reported by a number of now former employees on LinkedIn. By the way, LinkedIn is a surprisingly solid source of news, because it's the people who worked at a studio who gets fired, and they just go, well, fuck this place, I was fired. So they don't care anymore. A studio representative confirmed the cuts for GameIndustry.biz. After a rigorous review, we made the decision to change the structure of our support teams, and we have made a tough decision to reduce our workforce by a total of 34 people across publishing, HR, IT, and shared service teams, the representative said. The developer had a previous round of layoffs in May, cutting 9% of the company as part of the move to determine our strongest path in terms of success and sustainability. It's not going to be the only one either. Promise you more layoffs coming at the studio. And they're not the only ones getting the axe as well. This here tweet from Nick Calandra, who is the EIC of Second Wind, a new video gaming Patreon that popped up in the wake of the Escapist fallout, said the following. In not so great news, I'm hearing from sources that New World Interactive is the next studio shut down from Embracer. Happened this morning. Apparently, no public statements come out yet. Super sad to hear this, as the documentary I did with Studio, and they're great. These are the guys that made Day of Infinity and Insurgents. You can see Insurgents right here. They do have a LinkedIn post from a former team member right here saying the following. Hey everyone, our project at New World Interactive was canceled today and most of the team has been let go as a result, including myself. I'm going to miss every person at New World Interactive. Everyone is an absolute joy to work for and an absolute blast every day. Please extend some help and good wishes for them, though it's a rough day right now for the team. They're all wonderful people and they should be fantastic addition to any team. If any studios are looking for a new gameplay programmer specializing in Unreal 5 and C++, I would love to chat. So it seems that whatever New World Interactive was making, it was one of the many, many cuts that Embracer said they were going to be slashing. Remember, part of the fallout of the $2 billion Saudi Arabian investment deal was not only them making massive layoffs, but also canceling many unannounced games. So whatever they were working on at New World Interactive, we'll probably never see hide or hair of, which is unfortunate. I wonder how many games could have been great but were canceled before they came out. I think of a couple games still that I would have loved to have seen come out. There was that 7 days or 8 days that was shown back at E3 when the PlayStation 3 was getting teased with that Killzone 2 trailer. The older gamers remember that one. There was like Dead Rush, which was supposed to be a Grand Theft Auto with zombies in it. This was many years ago. There was a game called Earth No More, which was kind of like a War of the Worlds take on it. There's all these canceled projects that just never saw the light of a day. There is a website called Unseen64, which has a nice repository of these things if you want to go take a look at it, and I recommend you do, and just kind of glimpse at what could have been. But yeah, whatever they were working on, we'll probably never see it. Don't be surprised if some assets get reused into something else, but that game, as they knew it, is now dead. They're not the only two places that have had layoffs, though. We're going to finish up with IGN here. F1 developer Codemasters also suffers from a round of layoffs. Veteran UK developer Codemasters suffered a round of layoffs following the launch of the racing game F1 23 and EA Sports WRC. Codemasters owner EA confirmed the redundancies in a statement issued to IGN, although failed to disclose the number of staff affected. They said the following. Our business is constantly changing and we strive to deliver amazing games and services that keep our players engaged, connected, and inspired. At times, this requires the company to make small-scale organizational changes that align our teams and resources to meet evolving business needs and priorities. We continue to work closely with those affected by these changes, providing appropriate support throughout this process. It's a bloodbath out there, people. And every week, I report on more layoffs, and every week I feel like I say the same goddamn thing. It's going to get worse before it gets better. The economic situation is still untenable. You're still going to have massive reductions in workforce as companies fight to even stay open at this point. I know that there are some on the internet who says, well, they had a record-breaking year in profits and they should blah, 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 blah. These people tend not to know how businesses actually work. Yes, there is some fucking avarice going on here. Absolutely. But this idea that it's just a bunch of CEOs going, fire 30 people today because it'll make me hard, that doesn't actually exist. And a lot of times these cuts are made to keep many other positions open. Far be it from me from being a corporation defender, by the way. I'm just saying this idea of, oh, it's just nothing but a bunch of profiteers and exploiters and people jacking up prices. And no. Inflation's a real fucking thing. It's a real big goddamn problem. A lot of places are teetering on the brink right now, even though they might not show it because they don't want to scare investors, which would actually force them out of business. So that is why I say repeatedly, even if things look great at your company, even if you just had a round of layoffs and they said, we promise no more, get your resumes in order. Build networking contacts. Save some money if you can. Be prepared to lose your job at a moment's notice. Because we are nowhere near the end of this yet. In my opinion, this isn't any kind of financial advice or anything like that, or business speculation. I think we're going to start seeing massive acquisitions here soon. I know the Activision, Blizzard, Microsoft row kind of has scared people into necessarily not doing them right now. But I think you're going to see a fire sale of many a studio. I think Ubisoft is on that list. I think even EA is on that list. I think you're going to see studios getting gobbled up and the government not saying anything about it because it's either get bought up, acquired, and merged, or go out of business. In which case, then the choice is, do I fire 50% of my workforce or 100% of my workforce? I think that 2024 is going to be a huge year for M&As, mergers and acquisitions, out of desperation as companies try to unload toxic assets onto whatever buyer they can to stay afloat. This is going to get nasty, and it is only going to get worse as 2024 progresses. And on that downer, I have one more bit of positive news to look forward to. This is an upcoming event, the Game Awards, happening this Thursday. It's going to be starting around 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, which is where I'm at, and I will be streaming along if you want to go ahead and come on by, hang out as we watch the Keeleys again. I want to enjoy this show more than I do, but I do enjoy watching it. Of course, there's a lot of criticisms to be had. Yes, I do think it drags its ass in many a way. This thing's going to be close to 3 hours. I'm not looking forward to that, but we're going to watch it anyways. It is important to go into these not blinded by anticipation and hype, but maybe not a cynical asshole either. It is okay to be a little jaded in this industry. God knows they've earned it. But it's also important to take a time to celebrate what we all love every now and then. And while Keighley may or may not do it in the way that you think is good, I do think that Jeff Keighley is more of a force for good in the game industry than he is that of ill. Of course, there are going to be things that we roll our eyes about. There's going to be cringe. There'll be something like the Schick Hydrobot, and there'll be some, I'm sure, half-hearted political message crammed in here somewhere about insert whatever cause du jour of is going on at the moment. But overall, I do like the idea of taking time out to recognize the developers of games, recognize certain games for special achievements, and yes, of course, your healthy dose of world premiere. Even though Keighley has come out and said they're moving away from that term, you're still going to essentially have the equivalent of those on there. And far be it from me to miss out the old guards of Asgard playing live. I actually am kind of looking forward to that. So this Thursday, I will be streaming it here at Twitch TV/GamePoints around 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. Come on by, hang out, we'll watch the show. We'll definitely have some shade to throw at it. We'll definitely make fun of some things, but overall, I'd like to keep things nice and optimistic for it. There'll be plenty of eye rolling, but maybe no pitchforks. At least that's what I'm going to hope for. And with that, that brings us to the end of the show. This has been GamePoints episode 377, and thank you all for showing up. I do appreciate it. We do stream live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints every Tuesday around 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So come on by, hang out, we'll talk about the news together. Can't watch us live? Feel free to watch old episodes of the show over at any myriad of video hosting platforms, Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, etc. And feel free to comment, like, follow, subscribe, share, throw bits at. You have been on the internet long enough. You know what content creators want. You can follow me on X at CapitalistPig21. You can join our Discord group server link provided down there somewhere below, depending on where you're watching at. And I do stream games throughout the week over on Twitch as well. So come on by, say hey, and you'll probably watch me play some strategy game, either crushing Soviets in World War II or blasting intergalactic filth in Stellaris. Just for example. Anyways, I'm out of here. Thank you all for showing up. And until next week, I'll be seeing you.